Hello everybody. This video series is going to be either a 4-parter, maybe a 5-parter. It's going to be just about the crabs that I've done, that I've saved in my collection, and crabs from the past and stuff anyways. I started fossil hunting in 1990, and by 1991 I was getting into fossil crabs and started finding fossil crabs, and it just took off from there. I did other stuff also, like fossil fishes are everywhere in other parts of the house, but this is going to be just about crabs. This first one, I'm going to show you an opener, and after the opener I'm going to explain to you what the photos you'll see after that basically are, and then you can see all the really good stuff, or at least some of the good stuff. And now on to the opener that my son made me for this video, right over here. Okay, now on to the crabs. All this crab footage you're about to see are just still shots, still pictures, from way before I started doing video and YouTube and all that stuff, way years before some of it. But I explained through this process of all these still shots of, you're going to be looking at lots of crab concretions from different sites. Oops, excuse me. You're going to see how I mark them. That reminds me, and what I do with the ones that I have to crack open, cut, clamp, glue back together, that sort of thing, and then some during the process, and then some after the process. Anyways, let's get on to the good stuff. Back in 1991, I started picking up tidbits of information about crab fossils, and soon enough I started finding crab fossils in the state of Oregon. This turned out to be a pretty good crab site, but it was really tough to find a really good A-grade crab here. These concretions have the crab Orbitoplax weaveri in them. Let me show you one of the best ones I ever found. Look at this little beauty. Entire crab, some tippy-tippies, both eye stalks, great preservation. Best crab I ever found at that site. Soon enough, I found some crab sites in Washington and started going up there, and I was finding lots of crab concretions. It was a lot easier back in the early 90s than it is now because everything's gated, locked, closed, no trespassing. On some trips, I would bring home just gobs of crab concretions, and what you can't see is there's 2 backpacks in the back of the truck still full of crab concretions. Other trips, I didn't come home with as many, but I still had a lot of fun. Once home, I would separate the crab concretions from the ones I can read to the ones that I could not read. I would put an arrow on the ones I could read, the arrow being the top of the crab and the direction of the arrow being the front of the crab. Here were some crabs that were easy reads. I prepped these out, I don't know, years ago. What you see before you is a bunch of crab concretions from different places. New Zealand, Washington, different sites in Washington. Another different site. Washington, Oregon, New Zealand. I have found thousands of concretions over the years. I buy them now because I can't get out. This one was a tough read, so my son popped this one open, and there's just a piece of a crab in there. So luckily it was popped open and you didn't waste hours and hours of time trying to figure out what it is. So I can't remember why I kept that one. Actually, I do. I'm going to turn that into a video. Anyways, you take a concretion. This is a rather nice one. It's small, but it's super nice. If you can see that shape, almost kidney bean, rounder back here, much squarer up here. This is where the claws are at. This is the back of the crab. It's probably hard to see, and it really is a tough one. I'm guessing this is the top. So being that it's a guess, what I do is I just make a hole until I hit either carapace, which would be the dorsal, or the underneath of the crab, which would be ventral. And either way I would know it's a crab, but that's going to be a pretty nice crab. I know this site. This one, you can see that shape again, rounder back here, square up here, so you know the claws are facing this direction. This is definitely the flatter side, so this is dorsal. So that crab is sitting there just like that with his little claws right there, little legs coming out. I don't know if you can see them or not, but that's also another, should be a nice crab with very beautiful color. I know where that side is too. Every year I'd go on 1 or 2 fossil crab concretion hunting trips, and so there was always crab concretions on my prep bench, and here's just another batch I was going through. Here's a couple of big mamas. I put a little one there, or actually an average one from Washington, to show the size comparison. You can see I marked these big crab concretions. Never whack a crab you can read, because you may destroy it or destroy parts of it and have to do some fixing work. Years later, I started trading for crab concretions from New Zealand. Get a load of these babies. More concretions from Washington. Check out the one in my left hand there. Take a close look at it. Do you see that kidney bean shape? That's the top of the crab that's facing you, and it's the front of the crab is facing the rock in front of it. This concretion on the right was in 3 pieces. I glued 2 of them back together, and then the third piece I cut out what I needed and then clamped that on. After these 2 concretions were whacked in half, I could see that I could cut the tops off and save hours and hours of air scribe work in order to get down to the crab. If you look real closely, you can see the cracks in the concretions where they were glued back together. Some whacked open, glued together, some cut, glued back together, some pieces cut off, whatever it takes. Here you can see 4 concretions where I not only cut off the tops, but I cut off part of the tops and then glued them back on, all in order to save air scribe time. Another batch that have been cut and whacked open and glued back together, getting ready to prep. I don't use bar clamps very often for these crabs, but this was a very large crab concretion and turned out very nice. These 4 concretions were tough to read, so I whacked them open, but being there's crab parts in both halves, I put them back together. Notice there are arrows on them so I don't forget which side is which. This is known as the old 3-clamper trick. This crab actually turned out pretty good and is actually in my collection. Most crabs do not make it in my collection. A bunch more that I whacked in half and now glued back together to get ready for prep. It's all a process. One day I traded for a New Zealand crab concretion, a rather large crab concretion, and it came in 2 halves. So here I'm taking off part of the top of one to glue it back to the other one, which is right behind it. Here are those 2 halves glued together. This thing was the size of a basketball. I'm not kidding. It was a large concretion. But the crab itself turned out to be really nice, and it's probably one of my top 3 crabs in my collection. Here's the bunch right in the middle of the process of being prepped. My 2 favorite air scribes are both from Paleo Tools. One is the Super Jack, the other one is the ME9100. My prep bench gets very messy at times, but that's a very beautiful sight to me. Here's a bunch more. Some are finished, some still need some work. If you look closely, you can see 2 Meandracampus in there from Washington. The rest are Palaleus vulgaris. Get a load of this medley of concretions. Several of those are from New Zealand. There's one even from a fish from China. Boy, I've had that for a long time. Get a load of these beauties. A couple of them still need some work, but man, get a load of those beauties. Even though I had quit fossil dealing years before, a friend of mine asked me to come down to Quartzsite, visit him, so I brought some crabs with me, stole a spot about 3 foot a table from him, and sold every single crab I had in 3 days. Made about $4 grand. Pretty nice. But the important thing was I had fun with my friend. Okay, folks, there you go. There's the first video. That's just the opener of showing you what I do and went fossil hunting and what I do with all the crab concretions and everything, and prepping them out and whatnot. The videos that come in the weeks ahead are going to show you my actual crab concretion collection. Why I've never shown it before now, I don't know, but now is as good a time as any. So stay tuned for more videos coming of my crab collection.